Welcome back viewers. In today's video we are going to do installation of the Debian Bookworm LXQT Desktop using the expert install method. So let us start. We will create a new virtual machine. Use the Debian template. You can use the testing template also. So here there are many options available in the installer menu. So you have to use the advanced options menu, and here there are further multiple options available: graphical expert install, graphical rescue mode, graphical automated install, expert install, rescue mode, automated install. So we will use the expert install method. So let us go ahead with the expert install method. The installer used here is different. It is based on, I think, the Encrypted library. So it gives you the feel of installer from the Windows NT or the Windows 2000 days. So it is very basic, and there is this blue screen. There is a window in the center with the steps written, and you have to execute all the steps to complete the installation. At the bottom left, you have got some options. For example, the tab button will move the cursor or the selection. Space will select the selection on which the cursor is there, and enter will activate the button that is chosen. So you have to first choose the language. So English is the default one choice. So you have to just select the English choice. In the country, region or area, you have to choose India. Now the keyboard layout, India has EN, so we will just choose EN. Now there is optional additional locale that can be configured. So let us try to do the installation of American English or American US locale as the extra locale. Just go here at the bottom. Yes, so there is an option either to use the UTF-8, that is the Unicode 8 format, or you can go with the modern EN-US local format. So we will choose the modern format. Now there is option to access software for a blind person using a braille display. So it will not work in our case because we have not chosen the accessibility features right from the start of the installation. Now the keyboard configuration comes. So here we will keep the American English because you can see the Indian keyboard is not there, I think. Directly here it is not given. So later on after the installation we can do the Indian keyboard settings. So right now we will just keep with the American English. Now detect and mount the installation media. The following Linux kernel modules were detected as matching your hardware. If you know some are unnecessary or can cause problems, you can choose not to load them. If you are unsure, you should leave them all unselected. So we will just hit the enter button and continue. Auto detection of the installation media was successful. A drive has been found that contains the Debian Bookworm official DVD binary with the firmware glob 2023-0610 1023. So this is the right installation media that is selected, because you can see the timing 1023. So this DVD media was created on the morning when the DVD on the date this Debian Bookworm was released. Debian Bookworm was released, the ISOs were released sometime in afternoon. So they created the ISO in the morning 10:23 AM. So now you have to just continue, hit the enter button. Load installer components from the installation media. So you have to just select it. Either you can select each of the components individually, so they will load from the DVD ISO, or you can go and choose the first method. So in this, the mirror will be chosen and the components from the mirror will be downloaded and they will be installed. So we will choose the first method, or you can go with the manual selection also. Both will work, but we will go with the mirror. In mirror, there will be the latest packages, and if you use the DVD media, some older packages will be there. So after the installation is complete, you might get some updates or some fixes. So better is to do it right now only. Install the latest packages. So we will choose the mirror. Now it will detect the network hardware. Now the configuration of the network. So do you want to auto configure the network? So networking can be configured either by entering all information manually or using DHCP or a variety of IPv6 specific methods to detect the network settings automatically. If you choose to use auto configuration and the installer is unable to get a working configuration from the network, you will be given the opportunity to configure the network manually. So let us try with the auto configure network. If it does not work, then we will do it manually. Waiting time in seconds for the link detection. So you can change this. Default is 3 seconds. So we will continue with the default one. So the network config auto configuration has succeeded. Now the hostname. So it has chosen Debian as the default hostname. So we will continue. It's good. Choice is good. In domain name, we will continue. We will not input anything. We will let it be empty. Set up users and passwords. If you choose not to allow root to login, then a new user will be created and given the power to become root using the sudo command. Allow root login as a root. So we will say yes. We will input the root password. You have to again re-enter the root password. Now, do you want to create a normal user account? It is a bad idea to use the root account for normal day-to-day activities such as reading or electronic mail, because even a small mistake can result in a disaster. So you should use a normal user account to use for a day-to-day task. Note that you may create it later as well as any additional account by typing add user username as root, and where username is the username that you want to have, like I am Murdoch or RMS. So you have to create a new user, say yes, type the name of the new user. You have to just confirm it. Now the user password you have to input. Again, re-verify the user password. Now the configuration of the clock. So set the clock using NTP. NTP is the network time protocol, can be used to set the system clock. Your system works best with a correctly set clock. So you have to say yes. Network server to use. The default NTP server is almost a good choice, but if you prefer, you can use any other NTP server. If you that you can enter it here. So we will go with the Debian NTP server. The local, we will select Asia Calcutta instead of the coordinated universal time. So if your desired system or desired time zone is not listed, then please go back to the step, choose language and select the country that uses the desired time zone, the country where you live or located. So we have done the right choices. So you have to just select the Asia Calcutta and go ahead. Now the disk will be detected. Now the partitioning of disk will be done. So there are different partitioning methods available. The installer can guide you through partitioning a disk using a different standard schemes, or if you prefer, you can do it manually with guided partitioning. You will still have a chance later to review and customize the results. If you choose guided partitioning for an entire disk, you will be next asked which disk should be used. So partitioning method is guided use entire disk, guided use entire disk and set up LVM, guided use entire disk and set up encrypted LVM. So we'll go with the encrypted LVM. Use the disk to partition. And here we will go with the separate volume var and temp partitions. Now, before the logical volume manager can be configured, current partition scheme has to be returned to disk. These changes cannot be done. After logical volume manager is configured, no additional changes to the partition scheme of disk containing the physical volumes are allowed during the installation. Please decide if you are satisfied with the current partitioning scheme before installation. So you have to say yes or no to the changes that will be saved to the disk. So you have to say yes. The installer is now overwriting the virtual disk partition file VDA file with random data to prevent meta information leaks from the encrypted volume. This step may be skipped by cancelling the action, albeit at the expense of slight reduction in the quality of encryption. So we will let it continue. Okay, so now you have to input the encryption passphrase or the encryption password. So we will do it. You have to input a good password. You have to re-enter it to confirm the password. So you have entered a password or the passphrase that contains less than 8 characters, which is considered too weak. You should choose a stronger passphrase. So use weak passphrase. We will say yes. This ours is just for a review purpose. But when you do installation, have a good passphrase. Use a hexadecimal passphrase. That is better. Name of the volume group for the new system. So default it has chosen Debian-VG, that is Debian volume group. We will stay with the default choice. Amount of volume group used for guided partitioning. So you may use the whole volume group for guided partitioning or a part of it. If you use only part of it, or if you add more disks later, then you will be flexible to grow logical volumes later using the LVM tools. So using small part of the volume group at installation time may offer more flexibility. Minimum size of the selected partitioning recipe is 8.3 GB or 31%. Please note that the packages you choose to install may require more space than this. The maximum available size is 26.3 GB. Max can be used as a shortcut to specify maximum size or enter the percentage 20% or use that percentage of the maximum size. So amount of volume group to be used for guided partitioning. So we will use full, that is 26.3 GB. But later on in some other video, I will show you how to do it in partially like 80% or 90%, and later on increase the size of the volume employed by 100%. So how to do that we will show in some later video. Right now we will just continue with the 100% volume group usage. So here you can see there is the home partition with 17.4 GB. It is with extended for file system. Then there is root partition with extended for file system, and there is swap partition with 1 GB allocation. There is temp partition with 436.2 MB allocation and extended for file system. Similarly, var partition has 2.1 GB allocation with extended for file system. And finally, overall 26.3 GB, that is 100% of the hard disk available, is used in the volume group. There is a primary boot partition using the extended to file system. So now, and the logical partition contains 26.3 GB volume group. So it is encrypted. So now we have to select and enter the options, finish partitioning and write the changes to the disk. So we are satisfied with the partitioning done. So if you continue, changes listed below will be returned to the disk. Otherwise, you may be able to make further changes manually. So you have to just check the summary once. I think it is okay, and you have to just enter yes and confirm the changes to disk. Now you have to install the base system. So it is automatic. The base system will start installing. Okay, so now there is option to select the kernel. So two kernels are available: Linux image AMD 64, Linux image 6.1.0-9. So we will use the first Linux image option. Now, the primary function of init-rd is to allow the kernel to mount root file system. It therefore needs to contain all drivers and supporting programs to do that. Generic init-rd is much larger than the targeted one and may be so large that some bootloaders will unable to load it, but it has the advantage that it can be used to boot the target system on almost any hardware. With a smaller targeted init RD, there is very less chance that not all needed drivers are included. So we are just doing a virtual machine and doing some desktop previews. So we don't require the generic init RD with all available drivers. We will go with the targeted one, which includes only the driver for the present system. So we will go with the second option. When you are doing the installation of your system on a bare metal, you should go with the generic one, and keep in mind the boot partition should be also big, so it should be minimum 500 MB. Then your swap partition should also be big. You should have it minimum 2 GB, and the root partition should also be a comfortable size. If not done so, then you will have system performance issues. So now we will hit the enter button and go ahead with the installation of the second option. Now you have to configure the package manager. Scanning your installation media finds the label, that is the DVD ISO. So you have now option to scan additional media for use by the package manager. Normally that should be from the same set as you are booted from. If you don't have any additional media, this step can be skipped. So you want to scan extra media, yes or no? So we will go with the no option. And if it is yes, then you have to insert the media in any of the peripheral ports. For example, USB, a DVD, or a CD drive, you have to insert the new media. A network mirror can be used to supplement the software that is included in the installation media. This also make new versions of software available. So if you are installing from DVD image, even though it contains large selection of packages, some may be missing or some updates may be missing. So if you are reasonably good internet connection, use a mirror. Usage of mirror is suggested if you plan to install a graphical desktop environment. So you get the latest packages if you use the network mirror. So we'll say yes. Now protocol for the download. So the package downloads can be done using three protocols from the repo servers, that is the HTTP, HTTPS, and the FTP. So we will go with the first default protocol, HTTP. We will use the India mirror, and among the three we will use the debian.org mirror. No need of the proxy information. We'll just hit continue button. Some non-free firmware might has been made to work with Debian, though this firmware is not at all a part of Debian. Standard Debian tools can be used to install it. This firmware has varying licenses which may prevent you from using, modifying or sharing it. Please choose whether you want to have it available anyway. So we will go with yes. We will want to have all the non-free firmware available. So we will choose yes. Now, by default, source repositories are listed in the sources.list file with appropriate dev src lines so that the apt get source works. However, if you don't want to use this feature, you can disable those entries and save some bandwidth during the apt get update operation. So, do you want to enable the sources repositories in apt? We will say no. Sources repositories are normally needed for the developers or those doing system maintenance work or those who are doing the testing of the software packages. So end user does not need the sources dot repository, so we will say no. Debian has two services that provide updates to releases, security and release updates. Security updates help to keep your system secure during attacks. Enabling this service is strongly recommended. Release updates provide more current versions for software that changes relatively frequently and where not having the latest version can reduce the usability of the software. It also provides regression fixes. This service is only available for stable and old stable releases. Backported software are adapted from the development version to work with this release. Although this software has not gone through such complete testing as that contained in the release, it includes the newer versions of some applications which may provide useful features. Enabling backports here does not cause any of them to be installed by default. It only allows you to manually select backports to use. So services to use, we will now select the unselected backport software. You have to use the space key to select the choice. Use the tab to go to continue and hit the continue button by entry. Select and install software. So it will start up the task cell. It is installing the Discover software, that is the Discover software tool of LXQT Desktop. Now, updates management on the system. Applying updates on frequent basis is an important part of keeping systems secure. By default, security updates are not automatically installed. As a security advisories should be reviewed before manual installation of the updates using standard package management tools. Alternatively, the unattended upgrade package can be installed, which will install security updates automatically. However, that automatic installation of updates may occasionally cause unexpected downtime of the services provided by this machine in the rare cases where the update is not fully backward compatible or where the security advisory requires the administrator to perform some manual operation. So updates management on a system, there are two choices: no automatic updates, install security updates automatically. So we will go with the no automatic updates. Now there is a survey going on, package usage survey. So it allows the developers to plan the inclusion of packages in the next release. So the next release Trixie is coming. So this will help them to select the packages for default inclusion in the Trixie ISO. So we will select yes. And also this gives the Debian developers an idea which packages are favorite and which so the favorite packages will become important and those will needed to be included by default. Now the core of system is installed. Now the time has come to install the desktop. So the Debian desktop environment and standard system utilities will be there by default and the GNOME desktop is selected by default. So now if you want to install any desktop, you have to just move the cursor to that desktop, use the space key to enter and select the desktop that you want to install. And if you want to have two desktop, that is GNOME and LXQT, leave this selection as it is and just use the tab button to go over to continue and then start the installation. If you don't want the GNOME desktop, then you have to move the cursor to the GNOME desktop, use the spacebar key, that will unselect the GNOME desktop. So this is how it is to be done. Now the selection is done. We don't require the web server and SSH services or any other desktop to be installed. That's it. So now what you have to do, you have to use the tab button to go over to continue and hit enter button, and the installation of LXQT desktop will be started. 1326 packages will be retrieved from the mirrors. So if the newer packages are available on mirror, those will be used, and rest all the packages from the DVD will be used for the installation. Okay, so now the installation of the grub bootloader has to be done. So a grub can use the OS prober tool to attempt to detect other operating systems on your computer and add them to its list of boot options automatically. If your computer has multiple operating systems installed, then this is probably what you want. However, if your computer is a host for guest OSs installed via LVM or raw disk devices, running OS prober can cause damage to those guest OSs as it mounts the file system to look for other things. Look for other things. Other things means other operating systems. OS Prober does not detect any other operating systems on your computer at this time, but you may still wish to enable it in case if you install more in the future. So do you want to run OS Prober automatically to detect and boot other OSs? So we will say no, because we are just doing a review, and the OS Prober is not a good idea to run on LVM. So we will say no. It seems that this new installation is the only operating system on the computer. If so, it should be safe to install grub bootloader to your primary drive, that is the EFI partition boot record. So we don't have a EFI partition, so it will go and install in the boot record. If your computer has another operating system that the installers failed to detect, this will make the other operating system temporarily unbootable, though grub can be manually configured later to boot it. So install the bootloader to your primary drive, you have to say yes. And now you have to enter your hard disk, virtual hard disk manually. Here in our case, it is a virtual hard disk. In your case, when you do installation of bare metal, you have to choose the drive where you want to install the bootloader. You need to make the newly installed system bootable by installing the grub bootloader on the bootable device. The usual way to do this is to install the grub to your primary drive, that is your primary boot record or the EFI partition. You may instead install grub to a different drive or partition or to a removable media. So we will enter the device manually. Now you have to just hit the finish the button to finish the installation. Plus there are some other options like change dep configuration priority, check the integrity of the installation media, save debug logs, execute shell, eject the CD from the drive, abort the installation. So these are additional options that you can use during the course of the installation. So we did not require to use this. So we will just hit finish the button, finish the installation option, not button, sorry, installation option. So finish the installation, and it should now set the users and passwords, do some miscellaneous settings, and then the system will be ready to reboot. System clocks are generally set to Coordinated Universal Time (UTC). Operating system uses your time zone to convert the system time into local time. This is recommended unless you want to use another operating system that expects the clock to be set to local time. Is system clock set to UTC? So you have to choose the option yes or no. So we will go with the first option, UTC only. The system hardware clock is set, and now it is running the update init RAM FS. Installation is complete, so it is time to boot into your new system. Make sure you remove the installation media so that you can boot into the new system rather than restarting the installation. So you have to hit the continue button to do the install reboot. So I will stop the video here. In the next video we will check out the LXQT desktop. So see you in the next video. Bye.